There are growing calls to fix the country's education system. A recent report by the Oppenheimer Memorial Trust's Education Research Unit indicates that nearly 3 decades since the dawn of democracy, inequitable education system persists. This, unfortunately, perpetuates an intergeneration cycle of education and income inequality. For more on this, the CEO of School Days, Paul Esterhuizen, joins us in the studio. Paul, thank you so much for your time. Just to lay a foundation for our conversation, tell us about School Days.
Right, I am with School Days. I am School Days. I have School Days invested in every element of who I am. And behind us is we focused on communities, school communities. We focused on parent communities and our small role that we can play in influencing how we shape the school days of children's lives. And we've built this program based on some rewards and loyalty methodology, and we've expanded it and extrapolated it into creating some kind of platform where parents can plan to pay for the school days of their children's lives. It's great that you've got me on the show today. It's such a significant day in this country. About
Is it? Why would you say that?
Well,
I wonder what's happening.
You know, into our minds they've been saying to us, I believe, I believe, I believe, we believe.
Yeah.
And suddenly we're sitting...
And anything is possible. It doesn't matter where you come from or what school you went to. You could be playing in a Rugby World Cup final in Paris. Isn't it amazing? The land of possibilities, as it were. But the reality is, for too many children, a lot is impossible. You know, percentage-wise, we only see a small percentage rising above the set of circumstances that they were born into. And education is one of the important ways where we can really level those playing fields if we want to continue the sports analogy. Now, the findings of this Oppenheimer report isn't telling us anything that we don't already know. In the headlines at the moment as well is the upcoming amendments to the Bela Bill, which is also trying to shake things up and to fix things that we see as a problem in the education system. But a big focus being on the vast inequalities even still seen in our education system. Where do we even start? Is it because government hasn't built enough schools? Is it because they're not focusing on the right things? At School Days, where do you believe the top 3 priorities should be?
I'm going to go straight to this Oppenheimer Memorial Trust report. It's an education report. It's probably the most comprehensive problem-solving report that I've read in quantifiably the last 2 decades. We've got many, many purveyors of let's get it right in education. And instead of always doing research around certain pockets where we focus on something and say it's broken, we can't fix it, it's not being fixed, it's not being addressed. We're going headlong into the end of year season now in schools, and we're going to get another set of matric results. And ultimately, when we look at last year's results, I'm saying, what's going to be different? Are 1 in 5 of our children writing matric this year going to be failing? But I want to roll it even further back. The Oppenheimer Memorial Trust was established in 1957 when Ernest Oppenheimer had passed away, and his son, Harry, put £1 million into this trust for the common good of what needs to be done in this country. Fast forward, 2012, the Oppenheimer family plough another 1 billion rands into the Oppenheimer Memorial Trust. And I would urge anyone listening, I would urge anyone in business, corporate, any South African, just go to their website, omt.org, and see what the opening statement is. It's a we believe statement. We believe in a South Africa rich with possibilities. We believe in a South Africa that's pulsing with opportunity. We believe in a South Africa that has a vibrant arts and culture reality in it. And we believe in a South Africa where we have the fundamental right where every single child has access to a quality education, and the Oppenheimer Memorial Trust wants to solve for that. So if we're threading that back into where we are today, and we're looking at all of the problems here, early childhood development is a starting point. I said to you before we came on air, I wonder where the grade 1s of 1994 are, because we're pushing 30 years later another whole group of grade 1s into school next year. But ECD is the broken reality where over 80% of our children under the age of 5 are not getting access to the rights of what they need to know.
And that sector just recently, as about a year or so, I can't remember because I remember covering it quite heavily at the time, has now moved into the portfolio of basic education.
Yes.
What impact do you think that may have on early childhood development?
It's got to be an encourager because there's a focus. And it's not just left out into social development, it's now drawn into being part of how we get these kids ready for grade 1. So for us, we're wonderfully encouraged to see this happen. The truth of delivery, though, has got to be a focus where we're taking a budget. And the budget into of our overall education department's, basic education department's budget is like 1 or 2% goes to ECD. And I always liken to, as we sit here, I'm thinking, well, you're putting a step ladder in front of a child, and on that step ladder, the very first rung is I'm coming out of my first 5 years, and I'm putting my foot onto something where I don't even have the confidence to do it. And then you're going to be holding me, supporting me, and pushing me through my school years, and this deficiency in learning that I've arrived with follows me through to my matric years. And the Oppenheimer Trust report, the Memorial Trust report, comes out with the succinct realities of a focus into each of these areas and then a problem solve around how we can address it. We know that in our primary school years, we've got teachers who are struggling to teach the curriculum because this perpetuating system of the matriculant who gets into university opts to do education and it's like a default degree because we're not attracting the well-motivated student who says, I want to sit up and teach. We're not developing them. So we're getting this feeding itself back into...
It's like a vicious cycle, isn't it? So it's good that you focus on the fact that there's a problem and we need to try and find a solution. Are we expecting too much from the Department of Basic Education? Because it feels like the problems are so vast. You've got ECD. You've got about, I think it's almost 10 million children who depend on the school feeding scheme for their square meal for the day. You've got our very diverse languages. That shouldn't be seen as a negative, but it does make things very complex, doesn't it? You have not enough schools being built. You have so many children wanting to go into one school because they believe that school, even though it's 20 or 40 kilometers away from home, is the best school to go to. So you have clashes around that. Are we sitting with a situation with the department who's like that little boy at the damn wall who's trying to put their fingers in the crack and they just can't manage?
So we can all be critical and throw stones. And the last thing we're wanting to do, and for me, one of the threads that comes out of who we are in our purpose for the school days of children's lives, is what this Memorial Trust report steps in and says, none of this can be done in isolation. And the report is so in-depth and has so many collaborators in what we're doing. So it's got to be collaborative. It cannot be done. The CSI pocket is minuscule. It cannot only be done out of that, but it's got to be done on a broad scale, where every single person who says, well, I can't do anything about it, actually can. Because you get them on board and you belong in a community, and then you look around in the community and say, how do we change it? How can I participate? Can I be involved in supporting the school days of a child's life at a school to keep the teachers teaching? How do we do that? And we all aspire as parents. You yourself said to me, you've got a child, 3, ready to go. You know what you've invested and you know what you still want to invest. But how do we broaden this?
And you look at that and you think, but I want all South African children to be in that position at 3 years old. We've run out of time, unfortunately, Paul, but you speak so inspiringly about the work that that fuels your passion, and people might watch and be inspired by that to get involved. How can they find out more about how they can get involved in the work your organisation does?
Contact us on the website, schooldays.co.za. Join the programme. It's free to join. We have wonderful partnership in place with Dis-Chem, who've been supportive for education, which people don't really fly flags about. But we've done that, and we're growing. We're growing our member base by more than 1,000 people a day. And we have a vision to want to change, and we want to put that in. We want to draw all the philanthropic investors in this country to get alongside it. And I think a great starting point is to actually unearth what's written in this 139-page report that the Oppenheimer Memorial Trust have put out. And let's actually see how we as business, we as corporate, we as citizens of this country can make a difference. Because this is not an overnight win or lose tonight, we carry on. This is about what are these grade 1s going to look like when they matriculate in 12 years' time.
Absolutely. Shall we borrow the overused hashtag, Stronger Together?
Absolutely, given.
Thank you so much for your time
Marcel.
and for the work that you and your organization continues to do. The CEO of School Days, Paul Esterhuizen, in the studio with us this morning.